Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So I wanted to do my June wrap up of the month, book wrap up of the month. So this month I ended up reading 10 books and I was just slacking a little bit. Like, it wasn't a lot of books, but at the same time it's not bad at all. I'll start off with the first book that I read of this month. It was Belladonna and I absolutely love this book. I gave it 5 stars and honestly it felt like a little bit of everything inside that book. It had thriller vibes, fantasy vibes, some romance, just a little bit of everything, and I loved it. So it had this very unique perspective on the book. The main character, Signa, I think she was called Signa. So she has this superpower that she cannot properly die, so she keeps eating these belladonna berries, which are highly poisonous and you can die from them. So she ends up eating them multiple times and she comes face to face with death, and he's an actual person. So he's technically a reaper, but his name is Death, and I love the mystery behind it. So she ends up traveling to see her dead aunt's family, since her aunt had died and her cousin is the next person in line to die. She's on her deathbed and Signa tries to find out what exactly is happening in the house and tries to basically save her life. And I love it. It was 5 stars for me. Now the next book that I read is Survive the Night by Riley Sager, and that was actually my first Riley Sager book and I honestly wasn't too impressed by it. I gave it 3 stars. Like, I kind of felt meh about it. Like, it just wasn't a very memorable book and I felt going into a reading slump reading it. But it's based on this road trip that the main character takes with this random person that she finds on her campus, and there's a serial killer who's killed 3 women. She's basically hitching a ride, and some of it I just kind of felt very predictable at times. And the book starts off with the mystery being gone because it kind of straight away says what is happening. And in fairness, you kind of, as you keep reading the book, you're trying to develop your own opinion and if the mystery is really gone. But I just felt like it was very unrealistic, and the whole illness trope that's been put into it, it just was so unrealistic. Like, I was cringing at the illness trope in it, because there was this character who was meant to be so sick, and then suddenly this character turns into a Hulk, and you're just like, how are you fighting this person? Like, how are you? And yeah, at times it definitely felt even more frustrating because the main character, she wasn't even oblivious, but like, it's the fact that like she was like, no, I can't involve this person, they will suffer because of me, this person will get killed because of me, I will not involve them. Like, girl. No. So I did give it 3 stars. Like, the plot was kind of, it was alright. The next book I read then is Lingus by Marija Zapata, and it's her first book that I've read as well. And I really thoroughly enjoyed the book. I gave it 4 stars. And I love the banter between the 2 main characters. It's friends to lovers, and Kat, who's the main character, goes to a porn convention. I know, I thought I was going to be cringing out. Honestly, the way that the plot in it has been written is just so well and so beautiful. But I generally did enjoy the book, especially the first half of the book, because she ends up meeting Tristan, who is actually a porn star, and she has no clue until later on in the book. So obviously he's not ready to date because of his career path, and he doesn't want a girlfriend, which is understandable. But I love the friends to lovers, the banter that they had and everything. I absolutely loved it. But then by the second half of the book, it kind of felt like more of, well, I love you so much and you're my favorite person and you're this and you're that, and it wasn't as much of a banter, but I still really enjoyed it, especially since like the second half is more of smut. But I still love the relationship between these characters, and I'm excited to read more of Marija and the Zapata books. The next book that I read is Brain Damage by Frida McFadden. Now, I've read some of Frida McFadden's books. No, rephrase that. I read one other of her book, which was Housemaid, I believe. That was my only book that I read of hers, and I actually really enjoyed it. I gave it about 4 stars, I believe. 4 stars, 4.25 stars, somewhere in there. So it's a thriller, and I did not enjoy this book. Now, there wasn't enough of suspense for me to like it, and I found it like very boring at times, where it was putting me into a reading slump. So the whole book is based pretty much in the hospital, since the main character got a gunshot wound in her brain, hence the name Brain Damage. And so, you know, the book is written from the perspective of the main character, of how she regains her consciousness, and how she starts moving her body and remembering things and working up on all of those little things until the very end, where she kind of realized who shot her. But I just felt like it was just too much focus on her in the hospital, which I kind of felt like there would be more suspense to it. But I've actually talked about this book and a few more books in my swap my screen time for reading time, and you can kind of see how many days you will see actually if I passed the challenge or if I failed. And spoiler alert, I miserably failed the challenge. But I did talk about this book more in depth into it, and honestly I just thought it was absolutely disgusting, the fact that the author ended up writing Charlotte's character as the fact that like she was just so ugly and no guy would ever go for her, and just such negative outlook on food, and that she should lose weight and all of that. Like, I felt like it was very unnecessary at all, and just really that book really put me off it. Just wasn't entertaining to read about that. I mean, to each their own, I guess. But this is where it gets even worse, because the next book that I read is You've Reached Sam. And oh my god, I think this is the lowest I've ever rated a book, and I gave it 1 star. And I'm pretty sure it's YA, and to me it definitely felt like a YA written book, and I hate giving books such a low rating, I generally do. But this book, I didn't like the writing of it, I didn't like anything about it, and just, you know, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. This book has current timeline mixed with flashbacks, and the flashbacks are kind of like all over the place, and I wish that the character Sam hadn't died within like the first 3 pages, but to have actually had that relationship between the main character, whatever her name was. But it just happened all so fast, and then suddenly you're supposed to care about that character and their relationship and everything. Nothing really made me feel for the book, and maybe that's just my opinion, but I really didn't like it. The next book that I read is, now this is where it slightly started to go up the hill for me. The next book that I read is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood, and I enjoy her writing style. I enjoy the way that she writes her books from a scientifical kind of perspective, where she puts in science into it, so it's not just like any normal romance book really, and I love that unique perspective. And this one I gave 4 stars. 4 stars I felt like was a good rating for it. And the tropes for this were workplace, fake dating, and age gap. And I think it's the first book that I read of age gap and fake dating. And so it's basically about Olive kissing her, well, he's not really her professor, but it's her kissing professor in the Harvard University, and he's not a likable professor, so there's not many people who do like him actually. And I love the banter between him and Olive. It just was so cute, and the fact that like he was giving off grumpy vibes and she was sunshine, and I loved it. And they start fake dating because she needs an excuse to let her best friend date her ex, but he's not really her ex because they went out only like one date or something. And her best friend is very like, no, he's yours, it's fine. But she could definitely tell that her best friend and her ex kind of have feelings for one another and that they'd be a perfect match. But her best friend has too much of pride to actually admit it. So Olive obviously came up with the whole idea of she's going to be dating Adam. Well, Adam came up with it, in all fairness, and she went along with it. But it's so adorable, that relationship, and he was just such a wholesome character, and I honestly enjoyed the book reading it. The next book that I read is Never Never by Colleen Hoover and TARRYN Fisher. And I actually wasn't sure how I'd feel about this book because I haven't read anything by Colleen in a while. And since I started properly reading a lot more books since when I had just started reading books, and Colleen was the one who actually made me get back into reading, and I just wasn't sure if after reading a huge variety of different authors and books and all kinds of plots, if I would still enjoy her books. But this book was definitely giving me a retelling of Romeo and Juliet kind of vibes. So it's forbidden love, and it's basically amnesia and dating in school, kind of. They're students, and I 100% love the mystery behind it. So Colleen is one of the best authors, like hands down, that will do her plot twist just so well. Because I was reading this, right, and I was just like, you know what, I already know what's going to happen next, and boom, plot twist, and you're back into guessing what's going to happen, because, like, you know, it just everything just shows you off. But I give this book 4 stars, 4.25 actually, and the only reason why it's not 5 because the ending was a bit of a letdown, because it had so much potential and the ending kind of got ruined. It kind of felt like an open ending for me, at least. And I love the meaning behind Never Never. Colleen does them so well. Like, I love to get to the point in the book where the title of the book actually makes sense to you, and it was just such a cute meaning behind it. And the summary of the book is literally Silas and Charlie. Charlie is a girl, I know, but they're basically in school, and you keep getting each of their point of views, and neither of them can remember anything at all, like what's their names, where they at, and family, or where they live, like anything at all. It's like proper amnesia. So they're on a mission to find out why is it that they can't remember anything, and trying to restore back their memories. And that's pretty much all that I can say, because I have to read it to find out, honestly. But Colleen Hoover has never let me down. There hasn't been a book that I didn't like that I read of hers, so I'm not surprised that I did like this book. Then the next book that I read is The Sweetest Oblivion. Whew! I love this book. So I gave this book 5 stars, and it's a mafia romance, and it's my first mafia romance, like proper mafia romance, and it was giving me marriage of convenience, and also if I can't have you, no one else can have, and that has to be my favorite trope. I'm sorry, like, if anyone has any good book recommendations on if I can have you, no one else tropes, I will be super grateful. But I absolutely loved how protective he was of her, and the fact that, like, he just wasn't an open person, but he was letting her in, and was melting my heart. And it has spice to it, so if you don't like spice, you will not enjoy this. But there's a bunch of good plot twists in it, right? And basically Elena's sister Adriana has been signed to be engaged and to marry by her father, and it's a time in their lives where the fathers get to choose who the daughter marries, and it's just the way that things are done. Like, but as the storyline continues, Elena starts to kind of develop feelings for Nicholas, and I love the name Nicholas. Like, that is the name that I wanted to marry. That is the name that I wanted to give if I had a son, and I love Nicholas. The next book that I read is The Longest Holiday by Paige Toon, and this book was another letdown for me. I read a couple of Paige Toon's books, but this one I just felt very slow, just too long, and so I did give it 2 stars, and purely because it had every single trope that I was not a fan of. So I had pregnancy, the love triangle, and obviously cheating. I think the only character that I purely enjoyed was Leo, and he was just such a wholesome character. Just everyone and every single character was just telling the main character Laura how she should live her life and who she should be with, and that they know better than her. And I just, those kind of vibes are not the vibe. It's not something that I want to read about. And the very end, it was just such a cliche. I definitely felt like that was very, very unnecessary and just like went from a 0 to 100. But the book is based on Laura and her 2 friends going on a holiday on vacation because she needed to think about her life and kind of sort some stuff out, until when they're due back to go on a plane, and she gets a phone call and she realizes she's not ready to go back, and not now and not anywhere near in the future. So she ends up staying. And then the last book that I read is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, and I'm actually super duper glad that I enjoyed this book. I gave it 4.25 stars. I really liked it, and especially because I didn't like the 9th house. It wasn't really for me, and I definitely want to give Leigh Bardugo another shot. But I love the fact that in that book there was no spice, so if you're not interested in spice, I feel like you will love it if you love fantasy. And it's such a beautiful story and very unique, and about the main character who is a cartographer, so someone who reads the maps. And between herself and her best friend, they were orphans from a young age. Both of their parents got killed, and so they were staying at this house being raised by someone anyways. So it's in a world of people who have no magic and people who do have magic. So they're called Grisha, and it's a whole Grishaverse. So the main character finds out that she actually has powers, and she's actually the most unique person. So she's a sun, what was the word? She basically has some powers where she can create light. And anyways, it's a very beautiful, unique story, and 100% I loved it. And yeah, those are the 10 books that I read in June, and if you have any book recommendations, please let me know. I'll 100% put them on my TBR and get around to reading them if I haven't yet. And let's hope July is going to be just as successful. And yeah, see you in my next video.